At the gateway to Bucha and Hostomel, there are the mangled remains of Russian vehicles and the blown bridge which marks the extent of their advance. And nearby, the burnt bodies of soldiers killed here by a Ukrainian counter-offensive. Gruesome sentinels to a battlefield in which dated Russian machinery was pitted against the latest Western-supplied anti-tank weapons. And this was the result, a rewriting of the orthodoxy about Russia's perceived military strength. Some of the Russians who sought to occupy this commuter town near Kyiv will probably never leave. Thanks to one man's war, the remains may never be repatriated or possibly even identified.
This is the most potent symbol of the Russian defeat here in Bucha, a street choked with the charred remains of their tanks and armoured vehicles. Now they've gone, we're beginning to get a fuller picture of the terrible toll inflicted on the civilian population here.
War, in all its grotesque brutality, has turned these streets into a hell from which there is no triumph. Massacres of Ukrainian men have been uncovered by the army here. The war crimes committed here mark a bleak new low in this conflict, described by Ukraine as the most outrageous atrocity of the 21st century. There isn't just one site where massacres occurred. The true picture here is only just emerging. This man in Hostomel tells me about the rape and dismemberment of a young woman at the hands of two Chechen soldiers. He says they just slaughtered her like a lamb, but adds he took his revenge with other local men, killing them both. For the civilians like Maxim Skripnik, caught between the two sides, there was little to do but pray for deliverance.
Describe what it was like, the bombardment. I mean, describe how it felt to you.
It was terrible. It was completely terrible. Near my car was exploded 3 mines.
Some of the dead were buried by their neighbours close to the shattered remains of their homes. This is where Ina lies, hit by a shell, her grave adorned with food and drink her relatives would have traditionally shared at her funeral, but her son has been unable to reach the town to grieve for his mother. But many more were hastily interred without headstones or even identification. Here it's believed 280 people were buried in mass graves, one row for Ukrainians, one for Russians.
This is horrible. We survived this. They were shelling us. I cannot find words to describe what we lived through.
This family appear to have escaped unscathed after days in a bunker, until you know Dima's father was detained by the Russians and never seen again. As he swings, he says, if the bad men come back, I'll stamp on them. There seems little chance now of the Russians fighting their way back into these towns, but the legacy of their brief reign of terror will never be forgotten.